I will be doing the season of my predicted NFL draft first round video. Those are the offensive players that I do think will go first round, but this isn't really the order that I think they'll get drafted in. This is the order that I would put them in. So at quarterback, I have Dylan Gabriel at one. So he finished at third for the Heisman Trophy, and I would have picked him for the Heisman Trophy. Travis Hunter won it, I think, because he plays at two positions, and even though he is a great player at both positions that he plays, he's not the best player in the country at either position that he plays. And Dylan Gabriel, I think, is the best player at his position. And I was not surprised that Dylan Gabriel didn't go back to Oklahoma, but I was surprised that he went back to college because after the year that he had in 2023 at Oklahoma, I was pretty sure that he would enter the NFL draft. But I found out later on that he mainly returned to college because if he would have entered the draft after the 2023 season, he was only expected to be a seventh round pick, and that means he wouldn't have probably ever played in the pro, and that is very surprising after the season that he had in 2023. But after the season that he had this year at Oregon, especially if Oregon wins the national championship. I'd be shocked if Dylan Gabriel isn't a first round draft pick because I know he's kind of undersized, which is probably why he was only expected to go seventh round last year. But Bryce Young and Kyler Murray were undersized too, and they were both number one draft picks. And Dylan Gabriel has all of the arm strength and accuracy that you could ask for, and he throws a great deep ball. So this season, he's got 3,558 yards at passing and has thrown 28 touchdown passes, and he's completed 73.2% of his passes and averages 8.8 yards per throw. All those numbers are very good, and he hasn't ran it a lot this year, not as much as I would have thought he would have. He's only got 63 carries for 192, but he does have a seven rushing touchdowns. And Travis Hunter got the Heisman, but Dylan Gabriel will have a chance to do something even bigger with Oregon. And you know, Travis Hunter is part of Coach Prime's Colorado Clown show. And then Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. I've got it number two. Now, I think Shedeur Sanders will probably end up being the first quarterback taken, but I don't think he's as good as Dylan Gabriel is. So Shedeur Sanders will probably be taken somewhere in the top five of the draft. So he had a very good season, throwing for 3,926 yards and completing at 74.2% of his passes and averaging 8.6 yards per throw and throwing 35 touchdown passes. But his numbers are higher than Gabriel's, I think, because Colorado has to do the air raid offense because they have no offensive line. And I did see that Shedeur Sanders will be playing in the bowl game, so Colorado will at least have a Coach Prime for the bowl game to be their pretend head coach for at least one more game. And Travis Hunter is going to play in the bowl game too. I saw, but I still wouldn't count on Coach Prime sticking around uh, anymore after the bowl game. And I've got Cam Ward from Miami at number three. Cam Ward could have been drafted after last season because of the great season he had at Washington State, but him transferring is going to make him a higher draft pick because of the season that he had with Miami. He threw for 4,123 yards and averaged 9.5 yards per throw and threw 36 touchdown passes and completed at 67.4% of his passes. He was the best quarterback in the ACC this season. And I've got Jackson Dart from Ole Miss at number four. So he had a great season, throwing for 3,875 yards and 25 touchdown passes and completing 68.6% of his passes. And his yards per throw average is almost unheard of. He averaged at 10.7 yards per throw. And he's probably the best runner of all of these quarterbacks. He ran for 452 and three touchdowns on 112 carries this season. And Jackson Dart will add on to those numbers because I saw he's going to play in the bowl game. And even though Ole Miss has had some struggles offensively this season, it wasn't really Jackson Dart's fault, and he's probably the best quarterback that Ole Miss has ever had, and I know he's the best quarterback they've had in my time of watching college football, and that's been a long time. And he's one of the best players that I've ever seen Ole Miss have. And in the Egg Bowl, he became Ole Miss's all-time leading passer. And even though Ole Miss came up short of what I was hoping for this season, as an Ole Miss fan, I'll always be glad to have had Jackson Dart as a part of my team. He's going to be hard to replace. And at running back, I only see one running back getting drafted in the first round, and that's Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Jeanty is only 132 yards away from becoming college football's all-time leading rusher. This season, he's rushed for 2,497 yards and 29 touchdowns, and he's averaging 7.3 yards per carry. And he's had a ton of carries this season, 344, and he'll at least get one game to try to break the rushing record. Probably just one game because I think Boise State is going to lose their first playoff game. But Jeanty hasn't been able to be stopped by anybody this season, not even against Oregon. He rushed for 192 and three touchdowns against Oregon, and he's rushed for 100 plus against everybody this season, and he's got 6 games of over 200 rushing yards. And Jeanty is a great running back, but you do have to remember that he's playing for a group of five team, and if he played in the SEC or the Big Ten, his numbers would be quite a bit lower than this. But he finished second for the Heisman Trophy. And Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State this time last season was expected to be a first round pick and the first running back taken this year, but he isn't expected to be uh, first round now because he had a disappointing season really because Oklahoma State had a disappointing season. Now I think he'll probably go second round. And now offensive lineman. So Kelvin Banks from Texas, I've got at one. He's the best offensive lineman in the country this season. And he didn't play in the SEC championship game because of an injury. But in his 3 years in college, that was the first game that he didn't start. And he has started in 39 college games. And I saw he is expected to play in the playoff game against Clemson. And he hasn't entered the draft for sure yet, but I put him on here because he no doubt well. And Kelvin Banks has not allowed a sack all season, and he's only allowed one quarterback pressure. And in his 3 year college career, he's only allowed 4 sacks and 30 total pressures. He'll be a day one starter in the NFL. And then number two, I've got Will Campbell from LSU. So Campbell has entered the draft, and I saw he will skip LSU's bowl game. But like with Kelvin Banks, there's only been one game in Campbell's 3 year college career that he's not started in. He started in 38 college games, and he's only allowed in his 3 year college career 3 sacks and 45 total pressures. He'll be a day one starter in the pro like Banks will. And then number three, I've got Jonah Savania from Arizona. I know this might be surprising because of how Arizona struggled this season and how their offensive line struggled this season, but they did have one good player in there. So Stevania is expected to be a late first round draft pick, and he started every game for Arizona that he played in, which was 36 games these past 3 seasons. He's entered the NFL draft already. And he's got big size, which is an advantage for him, weighing at 336 pounds. And in his college career, he's only allowed 59 total pressures and 8 sacks. But Banks and Campbell will probably be high in the first round of the NFL draft. And then at wide receiver, I've got Trey Harris from Ole Miss at number one. So Harris had an injury this season, which caused him to miss 4 full games and part of 3 other games. But he still was a 1,000 yard wide receiver with 1,030 receiving yards and had 60 catches. And he averaged a really impressive 17.2 yards per catch this season and had 7 touchdowns. And Trey Harris, when he's healthy, he's an obvious first round talent with all those impossible looking catches that he makes. And he was on track this season to set a receiving record before he got hurt. But I still think he was the best at receiver in the country this season. And then two, I've got Tedalolo McMillan from Arizona. So this time last year, McMillan was expected to be a first round pick, and that was, because of the huge season that he had in 2023. And he had another huge season this year in 2024, even though Arizona struggled. McMillan had 84 catches for 1,319 yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging 15.7 a catch. And he was close to the best receiver in the country this year. He's already declared for the NFL draft. He'll probably be a top 10 draft pick. And then Travis Hunter from Colorado, I've got it number three. So In the NFL, you can only play one position, so Travis Hunter won't be able to do what he's done at Colorado and play two positions. Uh, but whether he chooses to play a wide receiver or cornerback, he's going to be a top five pick. And Travis Hunter, I guess, could switch positions in the NFL. Like he could play wide receiver for a while and then switch to cornerback, or the opposite. But as a receiver this year, he had 92 catches for 1,152 yards and 14 touchdowns, averaging 12.5 catch. And even though that is a lot of yards, those aren't really Heisman yards, so that's why I say Hunter won the award because he plays at two positions. But I think he's going to be really good in the NFL, whichever position he plays in. So number four, I've got Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. So he's been a great receiver the past 3 years, and his best year was 2022. 2023, he was limited quite a bit because of an injury, but in 2024, he has been a little bit disappointing, I would say, but he still had a very good season, catching 60 passes for 743 and 9 touchdowns, averaging 12.4 a catch. And of course, he'll add on to that, getting at least one more game. And tight ends, I've got Tyler Warren from Penn State at number one. So Warren had a pretty good year in 23, but it's like nothing compared to what he's done this year. And mainly that's because he's not had to share near as much with other pass catchers. This season, he's got 1,062 yards receiving on 88 catches and 6 touchdowns, averaging 12.1 a catch. And Tyler Warren might be better than Brock Bowers was now in college, and that says a lot because you know how good Bowers was. And without Tyler Warren, Penn State wouldn't have made the Big Ten championship or the college football playoff. They'd probably be a 9-3 team at best because Penn State's wide receiver room, while it's not as bad as Michigan's, who I'm about to talk about, it's not very good at all. So number two, I've got Colston Loveland from Michigan. So Loveland had a pretty good year in 23 at tight end. You could tell then that he probably had an NFL future, but his numbers weren't crazy big. And part of that is because Michigan is a running team. They always have been and always will be. But Michigan that year also had a couple of good wide receivers. But this year, Colston Loveland has really been Michigan's passing offense by himself because the wide receivers have been terrible and the quarterbacks have been terrible. And Loveland has missed it 2 games this season, but in the 10 games he's played in, he's caught 56 passes for 582 and 5 touchdowns, averaging at 10.4 a catch. And that those numbers are even impressive for a wide receiver, especially for a tight end. So Loveland missed the Ohio State game, so that makes it even more shocking that Michigan won that game. But he's already declared for the NFL draft, but I don't know if he'll play in the bowl game or not. But that will be it with this video, and please subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.